saying one of my hot takes from my previous video, which will probably be somewhere in this area when this video gets uploaded to YouTube. But that talking point being that I feel as though our school system, our educational system, it prepares our black kids to function or live in a white man's society. It wasn't word for word from the previous hot take. Well, the hot take in that previous video, but basically what I said was I feel like schools teach our black kids how to live in a white man's society. And I have a few talking points that I'm going to touch on, as well as a few story or two as far as my own personal experiences. So, my first talking point is where Louisiana ranks as as a state in terms of education. And before I get any further, some of these viewpoints will be more federal as well. I'll start federally, federal and state, and then I'll kind of go a little more specifically into New Orleans. But like I said, Louisiana ranks as of now is around 32nd in the country for education. But even saying that, back in 2019, we were ranked at goddamn 49th, like literally second to last, unless you count our U.S. territories, which in this case I'm not counting. I'm just counting just the 50 states. We were ranked number 49. That's literally, you know, second to last. And we've been ranked bottom half for a good minute now. I mean, I think it's been a few, at least a few years for sure. It might be a few decades if I'm not mistaken. But in any case, Louisiana has been and currently is ranked low as hell when it comes to the educational system. And I understand that there's some programs that are being implemented that are, basically requiring schools to teach our students financial literacy, which I'll get more into later on in this episode. But regardless, y'all, like we're still ranked low as shit. We're still in the bottom half, and that's not good in my opinion. And I feel like it starts with, you could say it kind of starts with the government. You can blame it on the state. I mean, hell, everybody holds some kind of fucking responsibility in this, from the government to state officials to city officials to hell, the what do they call those things? In any case, I'm not gonna rant on too much. Um, my second talking point, like I said, my first talking point was the fact that Louisiana already ranks bottom half in the educational system. Second talking point, I'm gonna kind of get more into the government, not too much into the government, but just from what I've seen. First of all, I want to say that Donald Trump appointing Linda McMahon as a Secretary of Education was, I'm honestly, I'm not sure what the fuck he was thinking doing that. I mean, Linda McMahon has little to no educational experience, little to no educational background. Yes, she does have a bachelor's in arts, but I mean, you can be an art teacher with that or a theater teacher with that, not the Secretary of Education though. Like, and then not even to say that Linda McMahon hasn't even taught in a classroom before. According to the information that I've researched, she hasn't even taught in a classroom before, which kind of checks out because if you think about it, the first time we heard about Linda McMahon was, well, for most of us, the first time I heard about her was WWE. Running the shit along Vince McMahon, and we know how crazy that motherfucker was. And for her to stay married to him, hell, hey, I digress. Though I'm not here to talk about nobody's personal life. But in any case, not only that, the fact that Trump has tried his darndest to reallocate funds that were already promised to the educational system, trying his hardest to reallocate that. Where, I don't know. I mean, I know it's probably going to fucking ICE or this war with Iran that we're in. I'm not a politician. I don't know what the fuck goes on in that office. All I know is the research that I see online. And that's not even to say that all of that is 100% accurate, because, we all know it's not. We got to go by certain sites to really get, and even those certain sites, like, you have to take that with a grain of salt. Um, like I said, between appointing Linda McMahon as the Secretary of Education, trying to reallocate millions, if not billions of dollars of funds that was supposed to go specifically to education. And it's just where there's a pattern here. And I'm trying to use my words carefully, but there's clearly a pattern here. Like clearly education isn't on the top of their list. And that goes back into what I said. They're not worried about education because they want them to function in their society. And that's going to be my third talking point. They want us to fit their own agenda. They want us to fit in their society. And I'm actually about to explain why that once I get into this next explanation, it'll make a little more sense. Let's look at the structure of school compared to the structure of the workforce. If you think about it, let's start with school. You wake up at a certain time, right? And y'all know I gotta have the notes because not trying to ramble. Let's talk about it this way. You wake up, right? You go to a specific location, i.e., your school. You have to be there for a certain time. You move when you're told to move. You have to get permission to do normal bodily functions, i.e., use the bathroom. You have to sit in a fucking, you have to sit in rows, all facing the same direction, and you can't talk like talking about it. If you talk, you get punished. That's factory shit. Like, that's literally teaching kids how to work in a factory. Well, I'm not gonna say work in a factory, but y'all get the idea. Having to sit in rows like we're goddamn like we're on a factory floor. Basically, like that's the best thing I can think of. A call center, a factory floor, however you want to look at it. The fact of the matter is the classrooms are set up. They're not set up for kids to, you know, they're set up in certain ways for kids to learn what the school systems want them to learn. Like I said, the way they sit in rows, and yes, I do have my notes. Like I said, grades are basically performance reviews. I mean, Lord, what else is there? Detention. That's basically fucking write ups. And if you do get too many detentions or you get too many write ups, what happens next? You're suspended. You get too many more detentions, write ups, or suspensions. And then what happens after that? You're expelled. Now let's compare that to the workforce. Going back to the bell. In high school, you got to be there at a certain time. At work, you got to be there at a certain time. During the bell, you don't really move until the bell sounds. In work, you're supposed to clock in until your lunch break or whatever. It's not really a bell, but you have to sit at a certain area and do a certain task until you're allowed to do something else. And then going back to the bathroom thing. In school, you got to raise your hand to use the bathroom. At work, you got to get goddamn permission. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe everybody's work is different, but for the most part, if you're working in like factories or large areas, not all the time you have the right to just use the bathroom whenever you want. And even if you do, some of those fucking corporations are gonna look at it and be like, "Oh, hey, you've been away from your desk for a minute now. You know what's going on." So it's not like they might not outright deny you the right to use the bathroom, but they're damn sure gonna keep their eyes on you if you do go. Grades being performative reviews. Like I said, you get a grade in high school, you get a performance review at work. If your grades suck, you got to make some changes, or you might be held back, or you know, worst case scenario, they got to kick you out of school. If your performance reviews suck, you get write ups, you get suspensions, and eventually you'll get fired. Basically, being expelled from your job. And all of that plays a part as well as the detention and the write up termination pipeline. All of that goes hand in hand. Your grades and your detentions and your suspensions, your performance reviews, which leads to write ups, suspensions, terminations, whatever the case may be, pay doc, whatever it is. All of this shit, it kind of goes hand in hand, in my opinion. And I feel like it's deeper than just, oh, hey, we're teaching kids, you know, math and science and reading and social studies. It's deeper than that. You guys are, I feel like the school systems are purposely, and I'm gonna be real careful when I say this because I'm not blaming this on any teachers or any specific schools. This blame goes solely to the school system, the people that are above us, that the shit that's kind of not out of our control, but somewhat out of our control. It's harder to really get stuff done with the school boards and the school systems than it is to just fix things in the classrooms. So, like I said, I feel like it's deeper than just teaching kids, math, social studies, whatever. They're preparing them. They're not preparing them to be unique in their own way. They're not preparing them to challenge certain ideologies. They're preparing them to be more obedient than anything. Because, like I said, it goes back to you sitting in the classroom, you can't talk. If you got to get permission to talk, even at work, sometimes you got to get permission to do other things. But strictly with school, the kids are taught to see. I'm really trying to use my words carefully because I don't want this to come off the wrong way. The kids are being taught to basically fall in line in a way, and I feel like without the school boards and without these schools really caring about the kids as human beings, but more so caring about numbers on their paper, or in this case, grades, because hell, who knows? And this isn't just like me making up random shit. This is based solely off of my own experiences and the experiences of those close to me, i.e., family and friends. And like I said, it's kind of hard for me to really be completely honest with how I feel because I don't want anything coming off the wrong way, and I don't want this video being demonetized or anything like that. I don't need my shit being flagged because I'm talking bad about the president or anybody in the government, because we all know that shit is possible. I've seen it happen with TikToks. I've seen it happen with people's Instagram pages. I've seen it happen. So, uh, and this kind of goes into my fourth talking point, that being the curriculum. Now, um, not only do I feel like kids are being taught to be more obedient, I also feel like kids are kind of being force fed a whitewashed version of history, what I call a whitewashed version. And my definition of whitewash, I mean, hell, if this, let's just be honest, it's not everything in whitewashed history is false. I will stress that. But there's a different tone to it. There's, different ideologies in it. A lot of stuff is left out and it's fluffed for, I guess, I don't know, but it's fluff more or less. I mean, like I said, let's go back to my Christopher Columbus, you know, my take on him. And I've said this a couple of times before. I've said this in multiple videos before. The schools teach our kids that Christopher Columbus discovered America. Okay, whatever. That's probably not going to change. I mean, as much as I hate it, it's probably not going to change. But they leave out in the textbooks, they leave out the part that people were already inhabiting the land and he basically stole it. They don't teach that Christopher Columbus stole the land. They just teach that he discovered it, which, I mean, take this with a grain of salt, but in my personal opinion, that's falsified information. Somebody else might say, oh, yeah, well, he did conquer it. You would be right. Yeah, he did conquer the land, but he did not discover anything. If you look at conquer versus steal, yes, you could say he conquered it, but you can't can't you also say he stole it though? Because again, people were already on that land before he got there. So I mean, that's one of the things that we can definitely talk about. If you agree or disagree with me, hell, let's have a conversation about it. But going back to the curriculum, not only are they teaching kids about their whitewashed version of history, there's also a distinct lack of financial literacy classes in in the world. Really, I mean, m- definitely in Louisiana for sure. I'm not entirely sure about the rest of the world. I know that um, Louisiana just implemented a rule that schools had to teach financial literacy as to get kids ready for high school. But to that, I challenge it in this way. You could say on a piece of paper that, oh yeah, we're gonna force our schools to teach our kids financial literacy, but where are you gonna find a teacher to do that? Where are you gonna find a qualified teacher to do that? Is that qualified teacher actually gonna stress the importance of financial literacy? Is that program gonna even continue after a year or two at certain schools? Because we already know budget cuts is inevitable at this point. So when you look at the inevitable budget cuts, that financial literacy class is probably going to be top of that list because they're not worried about that. They're probably looking at it like, oh, he's going to learn that in high school or they'll learn that in college or whatever the case may be. But learning it in college, it's already too late, in my opinion. I feel like if you're going to learn it, you need to learn it at a younger age because by the time you're in college, you probably already had a job by now. You're already living on your own, most likely. Or if you're not, you're living on room and board. And a lot of these kids don't know about these kind of things because they weren't taught that because the schools refuse to teach it. And the schools that do teach it, they probably this is a funny thing right here. Not funny, but and this will actually go into my next my personal talking point. The man, yo, the thing about it is I feel like damn, see, my mind is on a fucking ramble now because every time I talk about financial literacy, it irritates me that our generations that follow us and even the generations before us don't know a lot about it because they weren't taught it. And I feel like a lot of schools, even if they do have this class, who's to say they're not gonna hire a damn coach to coach the class? Because I that shit happens a lot, especially in black schools, because they can't afford to hire another teacher. So they take somebody that's already on the staff, i.e., some sort of sports coach. Hey, what you have a back? Do you know something about this topic or that topic? Oh yeah, I know a little something about it. All right, hey, you want to teach this class? And that's it. No, no degrees in accounting. No prior knowledge, no prior classes taught on this topic. But hey, yeah, he'll be good to teach it, or she'll be good to teach it. No, that's not good, yo. Y'all can't just schools got to realize that they have to stop. And I'm speaking from a personal point of view now because I can only do so much. Schools have to realize that constantly hiring alumni and people who have ties to that particular institution, those aren't always the best options. In some cases, it's typically the worst option. All right, so going back to the curriculum, and I'm gonna expand a little bit and kind of touch on more governmental issues, but at a local level, right here in New Orleans. I've already said that Louisiana ranks bottom half of the educational system, 49th back in 2019, 32nd now. That number could fluctuate depending on what you look at, but only thing you need to understand is that Louisiana is bottom half and has been bottom half for quite some time. But then let's go a little bit more specific into New Orleans. I don't know if y'all remember, but when Cantrell was still president and be not president, Jesus Christ, mayor. And before I get into this, if you a Cantrell fan, I'm cool with that. Just because I criticize her does not mean I'm a hater. Because a lot of y'all love to say that people who criticize Cantrell just hating on her. Nobody's hating on TD, but at the end of the day, a lot of shit that she did and didn't do affected us kind of negatively. In any case, there was a deal back in, I want to say sometime last year. I think, was it last year? It was sometime last year. There was some funds that was supposed to be allocated to the Department of Education, the Louisiana, was it the Louisiana? I'm sorry, New Orleans public schools. There were funds that were supposed to go directly to New Orleans public schools. Cantrell backed out of the deal to pay them, and I think it was like $20 million. I don't exactly remember the numbers, but I know for sure that this shit went to court and everything, yo. Like the judge had to force her to pay those schools because you can't sit there and promise a certain amount to schools and then back out of the shit because, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't exactly know what the reason was she backed out of it, but that that kind of fucked everything up. For the judge to have to come in and tell you to, basically honor your word, that's kind of mess. That's not good. And to be in a position of power like she was and still sitting there going back on you, no, hell no. We deal with that shit enough with Donald Trump. We don't need that happening in our own city. Um, then not to mention the damn school board. They had a whole lawsuit against the city from fucking tax revenue. Man, it was so much, y'all. It was a lot. Like it's more than I can really talk about right now without this episode being long. Maybe I'll touch on that in a future episode. But I just want to say that those are my talking points, and I'm gonna tell you all the story, and then I'll finish up. But when I talked about schools hiring alumni and football coaches to teach these extracurricular, when I mean they call it extracurricular, but financial literacy really should be a required class. But they teach these extracurriculars, right? And going back to my days in high school at St. Aug, like I said, I mentioned that there was an African American studies class that I took my junior year, and I'm going to talk about it a little more. So, junior year, I took an African American studies class. Um, Back then, I didn't really take it seriously, but with me being 31 now compared to when I was fucking 16 at the time, 15, 17, I look back at it now and I'm a little embarrassed. I will admit that I'm a little embarrassed because like I said, back then, when a teacher would come in and say that we had work, we would actually sit there and laugh at him. And I'm not naming any names. We would actually, the whole class, myself included, we would actually sit there and laugh at him. And I'm not talking about like, oh, under our breath laughing. Like we would be like, oh, ha 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 ha, like dead ass laughing at him. And he would look like, man, y'all think I'm playing? We serious? But then he would just turn around and put a fucking a show on or a video or something like that. Or we would just sit there and talk. Now, I'm not blaming the teacher for this. I mean, I'm blaming him for it, but I'm not blaming him for it because, in my opinion, he should have never been appointed the Afro American Studies teacher. I personally don't know what he knows about African American studies because we literally never talked about it. I think we may have had one assignment the entire year. Hell, we was watching 30 for 30, one of the damn classes. I don't exactly know what his knowledge is as far as African American studies, but I still feel like he shouldn't have been appointed in that position. I feel like there should have been an actual black advocate or somebody that studies it or somebody that hell lived through it. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that lived through it would be the best option. There are still people that are in their 60s and their 50s who lived through that shit. Those times were not that long ago, yo. It's only 2026. This shit spans back to like 1960 something. So 1960, let's just say 1960, right? 1960 to 2000 is 40 years old. 40 years to now is 66. That's not that old. People are still living. People still, though, I know people older than that look fucking amazing. 66 years is not that long. There are people that live through this shit that are still alive and kicking and doing well for themselves and probably healthy that can easily come in and teach this African American studies class and actually give us the real deal on what the fuck happened, not just the whitewash version. or even not even the whitewash version, not just the expedited version that are probably in textbooks. They could actually talk about what it was like living through, the Jim Crow era, or when black people couldn't vote, when we tried to revolutionize, hell, all of that stuff wasn't that long ago. Like Rosa Parks, that stuff wasn't that long ago. I mean, fuck, there's a damn joke going around right now. And they said motherfucker Ruby Bridges got a damn TikTok. Like that's crazy. That when y'all think about it, is not that shit didn't happen that long ago. And I'm gonna keep stressing this shit too, because a lot of people, a lot of y'all don't realize we don't give a fuck about you saying telling us get over it. We're not gonna get over it because y'all are still doing this shit to us to this day. It's just not being fucking publicized like it used to be, and it's coming in different forms. Like, oh, preferences. No, you're not about to fucking sugarcoat that shit just to say you don't like black people. Oh, my preference is white people and this and that. Just say you don't like black people and move on. I'd rather you be honest with yourself. You're gonna be racist regardless, but at least be honest about it. That way I know not to fuck with you. Or I might troll you. Cause at the end of the day, what do you gain from being racist? I digress though, y'all. Let me get back to the point. Um, like I said, I feel like this teacher shouldn't have been appointed. He was a great guy. Don't get me wrong. Great amazing coach. I just feel like that was the fault of the school for even putting him in that position just to save money. Let's just be honest. It was just to save money. My school had a big issue with hiring alumni. At least my time there. I don't know about any time after 2013. I graduated in 2013. So anytime after that, I don't know. But my 4 years being there were a lot of alumni that were hired as teachers outside instead of, well, I'm not gonna say a lot, but there were quite a few alumni that were hired as staff, let's just say that, over actual qualified teachers. I'm not sure if they're still doing it now, but I know when I was there, that happened a lot. But I'm gonna finish by saying this. In everything that I said, I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that black kids cannot succeed. I'm not saying minorities can't succeed. But what I am saying is, in a structure, matter of fact, I got something here. I got something. Yo, for sure, for sure. All right. And I made sure to type this one up because I wasn't about to miss this. Some of the stuff, y'all, I gotta type up because with my mental mentality, my mind, I got like 50 tabs open at one time. So I definitely don't want to miss anything important. So this right here, this is my most important thing. Like I said, black kids definitely have the tools to succeed. Well, they have the internal tools to succeed, should I say. But when you're faced and when you're placed, not by choice, but when you're placed in a system that values obedience over independence, when you're in a system that teaches uh what's that word? A fluff version of history instead of the cold hard truth. When you're put in a system that punishes black students typically more than white students or any other students for basically the same issues and more often, and when you're in a system that it doesn't really value financial literacy for our more majority black schools, it's harder to really break through from that. Not saying it's impossible because it's more than possible, but the system, let's be honest, y'all, the system is not set up for us to succeed. It's not set up for black people to succeed in the workforce. It's not set up for black kids to succeed in school. It's set up to hold us back. It's set up for these kids to be moved on to the next grade, knowing that they still have trouble in their prior grade. It's set up for kids moving to from 6th grade to 7th grade, reading on a fucking 3rd grade level because they never had to practice or the teacher that actually cared enough to work through that with him or her. It's set up for kids that nowadays there is no failing. You know what I'm saying? There is no, and this is like I said, this isn't just me making up shit. This is things that I've heard from my family and my friends, and I'm just here to share it with y'all. It's set up for kids don't even fail nowadays. Like when we were in school, we had a fucking grading system. I think we had the 6 point grading system. Back in my elementary school days, we had the 6 point grading system, which was um anything 94 above was an a 93 to and 86 was a B. A 85 to I want to say a 85 to a 78 was a C, and a 77 to a 71. No, 77 to a 70, I believe, was a D. And then anything under a 70 was an F. So you had to get at least, you know, 70% of your shit right to even pass. And a lot of the times a D wasn't even really that good. No, well, shit, a D still isn't good, but I know there's some classes now, even in college, a D is considered a passing grade. That was never the case back then. It's set up to for these kids to just, they're trying to push these kids out the system. They're trying to push the kids out of the educational system into the workforce pipeline. They don't give a fuck about them, you know, building their own businesses, creating their own brands. Because now we have NIL deals going on. I don't think anybody's really teaching about that. I mean, there's so many things that can set up our kids for generational wealth and just generational everything. And our educational system just doesn't really give a fuck about that. Like I said, they care more about pushing kids through the educational pipeline into the workforce pipeline. And that's why conversations like this matter. And that's why we just need to fight more. I mean, I know we can only do so much as a community, but in my opinion, I feel like there's nothing we can do about what happened in the past. We can't do anything about how we came up. We can't do anything about, the schools that we went through. But what we can do is fight for change for our kids and our grandkids. I mean, hell, I don't want my daughter going to just any school where she's not learning anything. But I also don't want my daughter going to some whitewash school. No offense. I don't want my daughter going to a whitewash school and her learning about the wrong shit. And again, I don't mean no offense to any, predominantly PWI schools, because I went to one myself, but at the same time, it's different than being around your own. When I was around, all of the PWI kids and the predominantly Caucasian kids, I felt out of place. I'm not gonna lie. It was me and two other black kids in the entire middle school. And I felt uncomfortable like 24/7 because yeah, these are kids, but I mean, fuck, I don't know. I'm an outsider to them. I don't know what the hell they got in their minds. I don't know what they plan on doing. You can never be too careful around stuff like that. Now, that's not to say that you don't have to worry about that in black schools too, because yes, you do. But like I said, I don't want my daughter going to a predominantly whatever school and just learning nothing. But I also don't want her going to an all white school and learning the wrong shit. And this is probably gonna go over some of y'all heads, and a lot of y'all are probably gonna take this the wrong way. So if you disagree with what I just said, hit me up in the comments and we can talk about it. But we just got to make some changes, y'all. I mean, it starts at the Department of Justice, shit, Louisiana Department of Justice, New Orleans public schools, and everything in between. I mean, it needs some reform, yo. It really does, and nothing. I don't think it's gonna get better until it does get reformed. But like I said, y'all, that's my takes. If you agree, hell, let's talk about it. If you disagree, let's talk about it. But let's not sit here and act like nothing's wrong because somebody got to say it, and I'll gladly